My name is Janice Zolf. Currently, I'm a film director, but it took me a long time to get to that point. I've been a journalist for the last 25 years, working in television news as a reporter-producer, and finally decided it was time for a life change. Went back to school, did my master's degree in digital media and innovation, and started my own production company, doing corporate videos, something I knew a little bit about from my previous career in television. And last year decided to do a documentary, and that's currently the area I'm in now. It's totally different being a documentary film director than producing features for television news, although I use many of the same skills. When I was in news, every day, clean slate in the morning, you came up with an idea. In my case, I was producing arts. Got on the phone, emailed people, can I interview you? I'd like to do a feature on you. Shot it in the afternoon, came back, went through it quickly, edited it, fronted it, and it was live on the air at 6 o'clock. It was extremely rewarding. It taught me to be really quick on my feet, and there's no time for hesitation. I also learned to zero in on the nugget of what was important in everything that I did for air. But with documentaries, you take the time, and as my cinematographer kept saying to me, you let it breathe. And it can take many days, many months to shoot the same amount of time. And when it comes to editing it, for us, the offline edit alone took 3 months, and there was another month of mixing and color correcting, and it's a bit like fine-tuning a painting, you know, and constantly changing it and finishing it. So, but the journalism skills really came in handy. The transition, well, it took me a while to get to that point. I left broadcasting and went back to school, which gave me some ideas about marketing and innovation and project management, and but it taught me, I think, to zero in on what I really wanted to do, which was continue to tell stories. I'm a storyteller at heart, and to do them through documentaries. So that was how I transitioned. I applied for the grant, got it, and said, okay, now it's time to do it. I had the idea for a long time of the documentary that I wanted to do. I knew I had a really good story. So next step is to convince the granting agencies that you have a good story. I went to the Canada Council and the Ontario Arts Council, but I had to take off my broadcast hat and become an artist. Canada Council is only interested in funding artists, and that means you can't have a broadcaster on board. They don't care about people seeing it in the end. They want you as an artist to tell a story where you have creative control, and that means you have to have a vision and nobody can wrestle with it. So I spent many weeks writing up a grant proposal. I actually got another documentary producer from the Documentary Organization of Canada, which I belong to help me with the grant, and budgets and Excel spreadsheets and all the things I had no familiarity with. And I did the same thing for the Ontario Arts Council. And I was actually in Bangkok, Thailand, and I had been turned down by the Canada Council. And they said, we loved your idea, and you know, we think it's a great story, but we don't have the money, and thanks anyways. Well, I just thought it was a form letter, and I gave up. I thought, well, it's never going to happen. I'm in Bangkok, I'm at breakfast, I open my email in the morning, and there's an email from the Canada Council saying, as we told you, we really liked your idea, and we managed to find the money, so we're giving you full funding for your documentary. At which point I screamed. I thought they were going to arrest me in Thailand, but because everybody went, what happened to this poor woman? But they believed in the story, so that was how I got the money. It was difficult writing a grant. It was really difficult, but there's a whole learning process for that too, and you do have to think like an artist versus a reporter-producer, which is where I was coming from. SaintPierre is maybe Canada's most accomplished admired women's fashion designer. I had met her 25 years before when she was a student fashion designer, and I covered her for television news when she had a runway show, and she won Canada's Most Promising Designer of the Year. And I remember thinking then that she had a vision and a design sense that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And I was in my first year as a reporter. I didn't really know that much, but I admired her a great deal, and I knew there was something special. And I continued to follow her. I became like an ambassador for her designs, and I used to go a lot on the Hollywood junkets to Los Angeles. I always wore Marie SaintPierre, and she was a student designer, not expensive, and working out of a small little atelier in Montreal. But I believed in her, and I always talked about her. And then one day, about 3 years ago, so many years later, by this point her career had gone straight up. I heard a story that she grew up with Jean-Paul Riopelle, the very famous Canadian painter. He painted 6,000 works in his lifetime and many sculptures. He's probably, along with a group of 7, the most recognized artist to ever come out of Canada. And it turns out that her father was instrumental in bringing him back from Paris to paint in Canada. So she'd grown up with Jean-Paul Riopelle, who later went into business with her father. And they owned a restaurant together called Bistro à Champlain outside of Montreal. And Riopelle painted in an atelier on the edge of the family property. So from the age of 7, Marie would sit beside him at dinner. She always talked to him. She was like a daughter to him, and as was her sister Danielle. And she learned to become an artist by admiring and talking to Jean-Paul Riopelle. The reporter in me knew that that was a great story that had to be told. You know, you have a fashion designer over here who becomes internationally renowned, but how does she get there? And that's the story that I wanted to tell, and I had to tell. And that's what I convinced the Canada Council and the Ontario Arts Council was the artistic story that I needed to tell. But you know, once I got the grant, I celebrated that night, and the next day I went, oh no, now what? Now I have to do it. And the whole thing was overwhelming. I'd never done a documentary, but I had the money. So I just kind of put one step in front of each other. And one thing I learned in my degree at the University of Waterloo, Stratford campus, was it's about the team. And I'd also learned this in broadcasting, that you're only as good as the team you put together. So I put together the best possible team that I could. I hired the best arts editor I could find. I asked around. I did use my reporter skills to ask everybody, okay, if you had a great arts documentary, who would you hire to edit it? And they told me Annie Leclerc, and I found this fabulous cinematographer, Catherine Giguère. I hired a music composer who I convinced to do the score, even though my budget was way beneath what he usually gets, way below. He'd done an Oscar-winning film the year before, and but he believed in my project, so he composed a score for my film that elevated my film and took it from here to here. And I had a great sound editor who works on films that are at the Cannes Film Festival. But again, she loved the artistic vision. So all these people believed in the project. So I had this great team. And then I got a grant from the National Film Board of Canada, who are the best filmmakers in the country, best artisans of film in the country. And I was able to do the post-production at the NFB. And that in itself is a story, because my film went from here to here with the music composer and the editor and the cinematographer, and then it went way up here because of the National Film Board. And that opened huge doors worldwide. The documentary is called Revealing Marie SaintPierre, or Marie SaintPierre is the better way of saying it. Marie SaintPierre is the fashion designer. But because I got the National Film Board grant, I was able to take all the money that I'd set aside for post-production and do a French version called Marie SaintPierre se Révèle, and which opened doors for selling the movie in Europe and in Quebec. And it's 38 minutes long. And when I think, that every night I used to do a 3-minute feature that would go to air, it took us 6 months to do 38 minutes. and it finally premiered in March. One of the reasons that the National Film Board picked it up to distribute it, so after the grant they offered me a 5-year distribution deal, is that it was accepted by FIFA Art, which is the world's biggest art film festival in Montreal. So the premiere of the film was March the 12th in Montreal, and we had a full house, which was exciting, and then they played it again at the Centre for Canadian Architecture to another full house, so that was great. But because the National Film Board picked it up, they right away sold it to Air Canada, so it's on board Air Canada right now, worldwide, and I've had a lot of feedback on that. In fact, somebody emailed SaintPierre today to say that they were an art student in BC and they were inspired by the film and to continue their path as an artist. And CBC bought it, and it'll be on CBC National on the Doc Channel this summer. So they have the first window. The libraries are buying it across Canada because after Blockbuster went down and some of the DVD houses, the libraries across Canada picked up all the content, and they've become the go-to place for foreign films and art films on DVD. So Vimeo On Demand is considering it, which would be great as a rental and purchase. And I think it's been purchased in Croatia and Poland. And I just found out last week it'll be at an huge outdoor film festival in Montreal, projected on a wall in Old Montreal, August 30th. So it seems like every week it has something new, new audiences. I got accepted to the Miami Film Festival a couple of weeks ago, so it will be in Miami at the end of September. I hope it'll get into the London Fashion Film Festival in England in September. I've applied to a festival in Brussels, Amsterdam, Paris, Chicago. We'll see. There's a number of film festivals that are. It has a life in the film festival market, so a 5-year life, we think. You know, it's bittersweet when you launch a film because you're celebrating. But as a filmmaker, you're always thinking, okay, what's my next job? So that night I was drinking champagne thinking, okay, what do I do tomorrow when I wake up? But the producer at the National Film Board, Kat Ballou is her name, was doing a film for the Governor General's Awards in Canada on Michael Bublé. So each center in Canada of the National Film Board does a film, and there are 6 altogether. And she asked me the night of my premiere if I would direct the Michael Bublé film. So I directed it for the Montreal Center. And so the next day we went to work. We flew to Vancouver the next week. And I interviewed Michael Bublé in the back of a limo on the way to him shooting a perfume ad in Bryan Adams' studio. And it was challenging. I have to say that the Michael Bublé film, while only 4 minutes, was one of the most challenging things I've ever had in my entire career, including my own documentary. It was really difficult, starting with interviewing somebody in the back of a limo, all the sound problems and the lighting problems of that. But the journalism skills really kicked in because we had limited time, we had obstacles to overcome, and as a journalist you can shoot an interview anywhere. So, and you learn to get to the heart of the story right away. So I was able to do that with Bublé, and we got a really good, candid interview where he spoke from the heart. And that was the goal of this film, because it had to be an arts film about him as an artist, not him as a superstar entertainer. So that was challenging. 2 months, just finished that a couple of weeks ago. And then I thought, okay, now what? That was a big door that opened, but the following week I found out I got another big grant to do my next film, which I'm shooting in August, September in Montreal. Film number 3 is called MU, M-U, Big M-U. The Mural Project is a one-of-a-kind project in Canada, and there are 80 walls, 3 stories high, outdoor walls that MU commissions. They call it an outdoor museum. They commission these walls with professional artists, but these professional artists are mural artists, they're former graffiti artists, they're outdoor muralists, and so we're not talking spray cans, even though some of them have had that and they're, you know, doing graffiti walls, but they're actually telling a specific story, a multicultural story that transforms outdoor spaces. And the result is extraordinary. Some of these walls are on social housing projects, so, and they're in the heart of the downtown area of Montreal. So prior, people were walking by saying, oh God, tear these buildings down. Now they're stopping to take pictures of the wall and saying, wow, isn't that beautiful? This is what I love about Montreal. So it's transformed perceptions of a city. And I'm telling that story. We're going to interview the artists. We've got a drone for a couple of days, a drone camera operator shooting from 3 stories up. So we'll zoom right into the painter painting on scaffolding, and then we'll take it back to show them from across the street to get the scope and the breadth of the project. I have an award-winning cinematographer who is a rising star in Montreal. He's a great still photographer and a superb film director himself, so I'm so lucky. His name is Jean-François Breton. My editor, Annie Leclerc, will be editing again. Same sound editor, Melanie Gauthier, that I was lucky enough to have for revealing Marie SaintPierre. And I put another great team, because it's all about the team. It's not just about you, the director. And I'm really excited about this film. Bravo Factual picked it up, and Bravo is a Bell Media company, so right away they have broadcast rights for it. It'll be online, and so I know lots of people will see it, so I'm quite excited about it, and I'm hoping to develop it into a feature-length documentary. It's only 13 minutes. That's the funding, but I'm going to use it as a pilot for a television series or a feature-length documentary. 3 key lessons that I've learned in documentary filmmaking. It's never done. Attention to detail. The first day that I walked into the sound mix at the National Film Board, I thought they were giving me a tour of the National Film Board. I was in a film theater the size of a Cineplex, and they were mixing my film in 5.1 Dolby sound on the big screen. And when you see something that you've done on a little iMac, and then you see it on the big screen, you see the imperfections, but you also see the possibilities. And working with a brilliant mixer and color corrector, these people were incredible. Serge Verreau and Jean-Paul Viallard, I need to give them credit for sure. They're taking little paintbrushes and color correcting every little image in the film. And the sound mixer, Jean-Paul, he transformed it with the mix of the music and the sound, and bringing natural sound that the sound editor had done into it gives it a whole new landscape. And so I learned that it's the layers that you put on a film that make it. The initial bones of the edit is what is the storytelling part. But when you add all these important layers of sound and incredible music score from my composer Luc SaintPierre, you build. So a documentary film is building with a great team, and that is the most important lesson that I learned. And also that, and this is something I learned in television broadcasting. I learned it early on, and I've told my own kids this. Whatever you do, it's about problem solving. And if you can solve problems, you're going to get ahead. You're going to put yourself at the front of the pack. A documentary filmmaker is about solving problems. When you can't find one way to tell the story, you find another way. When you can't find one way to get that shot, you find another way to combine shots that tell the story. And if you can solve the problems, you're 90% there of delivering a good project that an audience can relate to. The biggest problem I had with my documentary was a week before it was released, I had learned a big lesson, and that was with copyright and arts releases and usage of art in a film. I have a lot of art in my film, from Jean-Paul Riopel, from Juan Miró, the famous Spanish artist, from many, many other great artists. Gordon Harrison, who was a disciple of the Group of Seven. I mean, really beautiful painters. They're all owned outright by my subject, Marie SaintPierre, and her father and sister, Champlain Charest and Danielle Charest. They own the artwork 100%. I had ironclad releases that I owned the art worldwide for all media, for the universe, in perpetuity. This is very, very important. You have to have that. And aside from that, I had an appendix for every, not second, every frame of my film. What the shot was, how long the shot lasted, initialed by the owner. And that was whether Marie's perfume, which she owns, or the artwork, or a model, because there are a lot of magazine shots with models. So I had to get releases from the photographers of the magazines and the models. But a week before my film opened, Sodrac, which is a collective in Quebec, it's unique to Quebec, contacted me that they owned the rights. They represented the rights of Riopel, Miró, Marc Seguin, another artist in my film, and Rosalind Grenet. And I said, look, I've got the releases for everybody. Lawyers have told me I'm fine. They said, no, not so fast. So I had to get the artists I just mentioned to waive their rights to use their work. And they did. They all loved my film, and they said, we're waiving our fees, we're not going to charge you. But Sodrac, who represents them, said not so fast, and they charged me $4,000 for usage of the images. And I tried to fight them on that. They demanded to see my budget. They wouldn't tell me where they got that fee. I asked them to show me a formula. They refused to comply. I could have sued them, but I'm a little production company. I didn't want to spend my time in court. And my next film has many artists in it, and I'm going to put in the releases that they must not belong to Sodrac now or ever, or they will not be in the film. So lesson learned, but you must always ensure that you have the rights to anything that you use. And these are reproductive rights, which are very different. You know, you can shoot whatever you want as far as art, but the second you broadcast it, you're done. So I learned the hard way. It cost me a lot of money. One of the things I realized when I was doing the Revealing Marie SaintPierre, directing, writing, and producing it, is that I really found my niche late in life. But you know, everything you do in life becomes a compilation of everything you've done. And all my years of journalism, my year in school, corporate videos, it all kind of came together. My love of the arts, certainly that's what I covered for many years in TV, came together when I did this documentary. And I knew then that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And it looks like one project's leading to another, and every time I do one, it builds on my experience. I love to tell stories about the arts. And if I can tell stories about the arts and engage an audience and have them interested in art, it is the most fulfilling job in the world. You know, getting paid is the bonus for doing that.